Hello, everyone. My name is Rebecca Morton. My pronouns are she, her. I'm the Director of Artists and Studio Programs here at Baltimore Clayworks, and we are thrilled that you all have joined us. I would like to acknowledge that I am joining from my office located on Piscataway and Susquehannock land, currently known as Baltimore, Maryland. It is my pleasure to welcome you to our virtual studio tour given today by Katherine Pon-Cooper. Katherine is a ceramic artist living and working in Baltimore, Maryland, and received her BFA in ceramics at the Maryland Institute of College of Art in 2025. She was born and raised in Charlotte, North Carolina, and draws inspiration from the state's tradition of folk pottery. Pon-Cooper works primarily in functional pottery, using wheel-thrown forms and atmospheric firing to explore her mixed racial identity and the impermanence of human connection. Her work combines Chinese visual motifs with American folk pottery processes, translating her personal Chinese American and Wasian experience into clay. For more information about our artists, please visit our virtual library at baltimoreclayworks.org and tune in for our next artist talk on Tuesday, May 19th with Brady Fanning from 1:30 to 2. I will now turn it over to Kat.
Hello, my name is Katherine. I am this year's Embark Fellow at Baltimore Clayworks. Welcome to my studio. Um, I have my wheel set up over here. It's a Soldner wheel that came with the studio. It's great. I love it. I work primarily in wheel throwing. I'm a potter, so I do most of my work here. I have my greenware shelf right next to it within arm's reach, so I don't have to get up too often. And I have my awesome wire rolling cart that fits all of my bats very perfectly. So when I'm potting, I can just take my bats off and I don't have to like stand up between every single pot. Um, I like to use bats whenever I'm not throwing off the hump. Unless I'm throwing on the hump, actually, I'm always using bats. It just helps automate my studio process a little more, especially when I'm like production potting like I am right now. And I've got my wonderful reclaim buckets within reach. All of my trimmings go straight in there, so I can just keep my wheel area nice and clean. They're pickle buckets from my restaurant job, and they're the perfect size. Okay. And then I have my wonderful wedging table, which is so nice to have in my studio because I reclaim everything and I mix my own clay. And so I can dry things out to the consistency I like. If I'm using bagged clay, I always cut it with some of my reclaim just because I like to work with softer clay. It's easier on my wrists and my body. And that way I always have the consistency of clay I want to use. This is my greenware shelf. Everything's under plastic right now, but I've got a lot of pots stacked up. These are kind of in line with what's going to happen at my solo show. I'm doing a lot of work about mix and like my personal experiences with dehumanization as a mixed person. I've got this like canine dog symbol that I've been using, and this pattern is a prong collar that a dog would wear, like a choke chain prong collar. And it's just hand carved with like one of these carving tools. I've taped on it to make my life easier. Yeah. And over here is where I hand build. If I'm at my wheel, I'm on the stool, and then anytime I'm not throwing, I'm in my very comfy office chair. And I hand build over here, and I'm making a lot of baseballs right now for my show. I have quite a few of them just like stacked up in bisque. I make them by pinching really thin slabs. Then I have this sort of like silly, complicated process on how I shape them and mold them. I'll pinch out the slab and I'll cut it to this like baseball sewing pattern template shape. And then I'll like lay each piece over these like old round pots I have just so they like set up in the round shape. And then I put them inside of bowls to dry. And I stick them all together, and then it's just a lot of back and forth of covering them up so they can set up and rest, and then rolling them rounder and rounder. They start off pretty square like this, but as like my process has gone on, I've gotten a lot better at making them ball shaped. And then once they're set up, I stamp the stitching pattern with rice grains. I have just like two Ziplocs of studio rice, very helpfully labeled "Do not eat." Um, and I stamp all my baseballs with that. So what I'm working on right now is I'm prepping for my solo show. I'm doing a lot of potting. I'm in production mode because I have to fill two kilns, which is about like 300 pots. I'm sharing a wood fire with some of the residents, and then I'm gonna fire my gas kiln. So yeah, again, about 300 pots. We're doing some smaller pots, and I'm also doing some like larger ones, and then also my hen building. Um, so my show is going to be called On My Best Behavior. I'm addressing like conditional acceptance, like the accumulation of resentment over like a lifetime of being othered and the model minority myth. So on my best behavior addresses the like prescribed behavior to Asian Americans that is like societally accepted and like rewarded and protected under white supremacy. This type of behavior is like being subservient and compliant and quiet, basically compromising personhood for white comfort. But that the model minority is sort of promised that it's a false promise of safety, of security, of protection. And so the work I'm working on for my show is like addressing that like dehumanization and discomfort and anger and just sort of pushing back against the stereotypes, especially against Asian women, of being like submissive and agreeable. Um, and then the dog symbol I've been using as a symbol to talk about like dehumanization as mixed people. Um, and it also like embodies my resentment from this like otherment. And I think about dogs and I think about mixed breeds and I think about nuts and the connotations of each of those words and how it feels to be a mixed person and to be looked at as a product by certain people and just that like dehumanization. And I like to animate, and so I animate these spots to like activate the dog figure itself and just to like breathe life into it and to this isn't just a symbol. I'm talking about people. Um, my favorite tools in this studio are my bat mate. It's just this like right now it's not wet, it's dried out, but it's this just like sort of sticky, squishy piece of fabric that sits on my wheel and sticks to my bats. I can trim my plates and my pots on it. I got it like a couple years ago because I was making a ton of plates. And it's just awesome. It like totally changed my production potting game. Also, I love my wire cart. It's really great and helpful. And then my other favorite tools are go to this camera. I make tools with in my dad's garage shop, so I've like made my own trimming tools and laid them. And then my other favorite set is a set of Dolan tools that was passed down to me from my favorite pottery teacher, Rebecca Chapel. So I just switch out which ones I'm using depending on how sharp of a blade I feel like I need to trim. And then my other favorite tool for or for studio is my headphones. Um, I'm very, I struggle with like staying completely focused if I'm chatting. And especially like right now with like less than 2 months to my show, I really feel like I need to be like locked in at all times in the studio. So I have my headphones on the whole time. I'm always listening to music. I don't really do podcasts or shows because I just find them too distracting. Um, but I've been listening to a lot of Wednesday and Squirrel Flower lately, and it's been a great time. It's some of my dog pots. So these are each a single frame of a 10 frame, 10 frames per second animation. And it's just a run cycle of a dog. It's kind of shaped like my family dog. And this is just, it's a salt fired bee mix with a little yellow salt glaze on it. But in documentation, I take photos of each stage or like each angle and then assemble it all as a video animation. And I started the like dog symbol at that residency because I felt like I had this safe space to finally like consider my like anger and resentment. And it was just like a very, safe, welcoming community and environment to do that in because I was surrounded by people like me. Of my horse animations that I made for Lunar New Year. I am Year of the Horse baby myself. I'm Year of the Water Horse 2002. And so I made these for your zodiac year and like Asian astrology, like East Asian astrology is supposed to be like a year of a lot of change and growth and maturing. Um, and so like a lot of growth that can be like uncomfortable or painful. So I have the horses going forwards and backwards to sort of represent that like non-linear growing pain. I really like soda firing and salt firing, but I like soda firing because it is a specifically American process. And I like combining like these historical, traditional Chinese like motifs and aesthetics, like the blue and white porcelain with the soda firing and like on a stoneware body to just bring it all together. And I'm interested in chinos also for their historical like context in the Mingay movement. Um, so yeah, I'm looking at a lot of blue and whites and so chinos, but a lot of porcelain. Oh, I one of my favorite Asian artists, Catalina Chang, on they are a like Chinese Mexican artist. They do a lot of like I think they use like B-Mix for like their blue and white porcelains, and they have a little more like cartoony, illustrative style than like the traditional like landscape painting style. Um, but I think their work is really great and exciting, and it's also like funny and approachable while talking about like mixedness and Chineseness in pottery. So and also queerness. So Catalina Chang is one of my favorites. I'm prepping work for my show and I'm doing just like a lot of potting because I have two big firings that I need enough work to fill. So I've got mugs over here. This is my greenware shelf. I've got baseballs, I've got mugs. Baseballs are for show. A lot of pots are like filler, but I am also when I'm not doing conceptual work, I am a potter. So I'm making that. I've got some mugs waiting for handles, and then again these choke chain prong collar bowls. And I do see this work actually going further. Um, my original idea for the show, which I have sort of dialed back slash narrowed down because I just, within the time constraints, I think what I had originally proposed would need at least 2 years to work on and research. But I'm looking at the Mingay movement as this like mixed American Asian craft movement itself, and how I see like the fetishization of East Asian aesthetics in both pots and people, like in spaces of, and how that movement is accessed through white privilege in America. Thank you.